My mother supported my brother's affair with my girlfriend. I took the secret formula and bankrupted them. The fermentation hall smelled like warm sourdough and wet iron. It was a thick, physical weight that hit you the second the airlock opened. To me, it smelled like work. To my brother, Julian, it was brand immersion. I stood on the steel catwalk, wiping a streak of black grease from my forearm with a rag that was past its prime. I wore the uniform, a faded black t-shirt, denim that had turned white at the knees from kneeling on concrete, and red wing boots that were currently caked in mash residue. I looked like the janitor. I was the master distiller. It's about the terroir. Julian's voice drifted up from the floor below. The Kentucky limestone water. It's the heartbeat of the brand. I leaned over the rail. Below, Julian was performing. Cream linen suit, pink pocket square, hair spray mounted into a perfect wave. He held a Glencairn glass up to the industrial lights for a group of Japanese investors. He swirled the liquid, closed his eyes, inhaled. He didn't sip. He never sipped. He hated whiskey. He said the sugar made his face puffy. Notes of toasted caramel, Julian announced to the room, and a finish of ancient oak. It's 4-year-old bourbon, Julian, I said to the steam rising off the mashed tun. It's a toddler. Sarah stood next to him, my fiancée. Technically, she wore a white dress that looked expensive and entirely wrong for a factory floor. She had a hand on Julian's bicep, not resting, gripping. She pulled out her phone. Chin up, babe, she said. Babe. I waited for the shock. It didn't come. Just a cold, flat recognition. Julian flashed the veneers. Sarah snapped a photo. I pulled my phone out. I refreshed Instagram. The post was already up. Advance Heritage, another gold medal batch. So proud of the empire we built. Hashtag power couple, hashtag legacy. Sarah thought fermentation was a type of cologne. Julian thought you made whiskey by shouting at barrels. I put the phone away. I didn't feel angry. I just felt tired. The kind of tired sleep doesn't fix. I walked down the metal stairs. My boots were heavy on the treads. The group turned. The investors saw the grease, the sweat, the lack of a suit. They looked away. Staff. Caleb. Julian called out. The smile stayed fixed. Perfect timing. The humidity sensor in Rickhouse 2 is red again. Handle it. Sarah was typing. She didn't look up. It's red because the wiring is 20 years old, I said. I recalibrated it yesterday. The sensor is fine. Your infrastructure is rotting. Well, check it again, Julian said, his eyes hard. VIP tour is coming. I don't want it smelling like a swamp. I looked at the empty suit. I looked at the woman wearing my ring. Sure, I said. I'll handle the maintenance. I came in through the mudroom. Front door was for guests. Back door was for boots. The parlor was freezing. My mother, Evelyn, kept the thermostat at 68 degrees regardless of the season. She was in her wingback chair, staring at the mantel. The mantel was a shrine to the Van Cess who mattered. My father, leaning against a Cadillac in 1995. Julian, holding a debate trophy. Julian graduating. Julian cutting a ribbon. My photo was tucked behind a candlestick. I was wearing a hard hat, and I was out of focus. Mom, I said. Evelyn jumped. She put a hand to her pearls. Caleb, you're home early. Julian texted to say the investors were charmed. Julian is sleeping with Sarah, I said. I didn't have the energy to soften it. Evelyn didn't gasp. She didn't drop her tea. She paused mid-sip. She set the cup down on the saucer with a quiet clink. Oh, Caleb, she said. Her tone was mild. Annoyed but mild. Don't be dramatic. She called him babe. She posted a photo caption, power couple. They aren't hiding it. Evelyn stood up and walked to the window. Sarah's high energy, she said, looking at the lawn. She needs attention. And Julian is magnetic. It's his gift. He's sleeping with my fiancée, I said. Engagements are tricky, she said, waving a hand. And honestly, Sarah wasn't a fit for you. She likes the lights. You like the dark. She turned. She offered a tight, polite smile. It might be for the best. Julian needs a partner for the public side. You need to focus on the product. I stared at her. She wasn't defending me. She was managing me. In her mind, the cheat was just a merger acquisition. Julian was the brand, so Julian got the girl. I looked at the mantle, the father, the golden boy, and me, the blurry guy in the back, who kept the boiler running. So that's it. I asked. I just go back to the lab and keep churning out bottles while he takes everything? That is your role, Caleb, Evelyn said. She walked over and patted my arm. She didn't make eye contact. You make the whiskey. Julian sells the whiskey. That is how we work. She checked her watch. Speaking of the lab, Julian said the rye needs tasting. Can you handle that? We can't let personal drama impact the quarter. Personal drama, I repeated. Go on, she said, turning back to her tea. Work is the best distraction. You're right, I said. I have a lot of work to do. I went to the lab. It was a sterile outbuilding behind the house. Julian never entered it. It smelled like chemicals and yeast. I punched the code. The door hissed open. I took out my phone. I checked the call log from an hour ago. Davis & Associates, IP Law. You're clear, the lawyer had said. The C-12 patent is in your name. It predates the LLC. It's personal property. And the data? If it's your research, you can take it. I walked to the freezer. Flavor is biology. I'd spent 5 years isolating a yeast strain from a peach tree on the South Ridge. It was aggressive. It ate sugar fast and left a note of honey and pepper. It was the only reason Vance Heritage won awards. I opened the freezer. Vapor spilled out. I took the vials. All of them. I packed them into a medical transport cooler. I sat at the computer. I opened the master database. Recipes, fermentation logs, humidity charts. I selected the root directory. I hit delete. I watched the bar load. 100%. I crawled under the desk, opened the tower, and ripped the hard drive out. I put it in my bag. I stood up. I stripped off my company t-shirt and threw it in the trash. I put on a gray flannel. I locked the door. I pocketed the key. I went to the dining room. They were eating. Julian was laughing. Sarah was swirling wine. Evelyn was beaming. I walked in with the cooler and the bag. Going somewhere? Julian asked. Checking the rye. I dropped my keys on the table. They hit the wood with a heavy thud. I'm done, I said. Julian chuckled. Done for the night? Good man. I'm done with the company, I said. I resign. The table went quiet. Don't be dramatic, Caleb, Julian said. Sit down. I have the yeast, I said, tapping the cooler. My patent. My property. You can check the filing. Julian stood up. You can't take the culture. I can. And the database. I patted my bag. Hard drive is in here. Unless you can ferment data from memory, you're out of business. That's theft, Julian snapped. It's leverage, I said. Call the cops. I'll show them the timestamp on your power couple post and sue for constructive dismissal and IP infringement. Or I walk out and we call it even. I looked at Sarah. She was staring at the bag. Good luck with the next batch, I said. Without the yeast, you're making brown vodka. Caleb, Evelyn stood up. This is cruel. You are abandoning your brother. I'm letting him shine, Mom, I said. He's the soul of the company, isn't he? Let's see how the soul works without a brain. I looked at Julian. The tan looked suddenly pale. You're the CEO, Julian, I said. Do your job. I turned and walked out. I got in my truck. I didn't look back. I flew to Iceland. I needed cold storage for the yeast, and I needed quiet for me. I rented a glass cabin on the south coast. It cost a fortune. I didn't care. I hadn't spent a dime of my salary in 6 years. For 3 weeks, I didn't live. I maintained. I sat watching the rain hit the glass. I drank expensive local vodka because the smell of whiskey made me sick. I kept the cooler plugged into the mains, checking the temperature every 4 hours. For degrees Celsius. I checked LinkedIn once. Vance Heritage press release. Master Distiller Caleb Vance has taken an indefinite leave for personal health reasons. He was painting me as unstable. Smart. No one called. Not Sarah. Not Mom. I was sitting in a 5-star cabin, babysitting a jar of fungus, completely alone. On day 20, phone rang. Arthur, the broker. You're hard to find, he rasped. Iceland. I like the cold, I said. I heard about the exit. Scorched earth. Impressive. I just took what was mine. Julian called me. He's panicking. Wants a biologist. Good luck to him. I have a proposition, Caleb, Arthur said. I have a client. Distressed asset. Incredible stock, ancient peat. But the facility is falling into the ocean. I'm retired, Arthur. You're 32 and you're bored. This isn't a job. It's a rescue mission. They need a distiller. They need cold climate fermentation. I looked at the cooler. Where? Scotland. Islay. I'm already here. I'm done fixing other people's messes. Stop feeling sorry for yourself, Arthur said. Come do the work. I looked at the rain. I looked at the cooler. I had nothing else to do. Send a plane, I said. Scotland didn't have weather. It had moods, and all of them were bad. The ferry smashed through the gray swells. The wind smelled of salt and burning peat. It stripped the Kentucky humidity out of my lungs. I felt like an alien, unshaven, wearing a Carhartt jacket, looking rough. Arthur stood next to me in tweed. Who was the client? I yelled over the wind. Kilmore, Arthur said. Kilmore is dead. Dormant, Arthur corrected. The owner is tenacious. Tenacious means broke. Arthur pointed to the cliffs. Welcome to the edge of the world. The estate was massive. Dark stone growing out of the rock. Slate roofs. It looked ancient and expensive and hostile. This is a castle, Arthur. I work in sheds. Just talk to her. Her, Alara. Good luck. The Land Rover slid in the mud. The rain was freezing. I got out. The air was sharp. Clean. Wait here, Arthur said. I shoved my hands in my pockets. Then I saw her. She came out of a side door of the distillery. I expected a socialite. I got someone in a war zone. She was walking fast, clutching a clipboard to her chest. Two large men in boiler suits trailed her, arguing. She stopped. Turned. She was tall. She wore a dark green wax jacket that was cracked at the elbows. Jeans tucked into muddy hunter wellies. She raised a hand. She didn't shout. She just stopped them. She said something low. The men nodded and walked away. She turned and saw me. Dark hair pulled back tight. Wind whipping loose, strands across her face. Pale skin. Sharp bones. She walked toward me. She didn't care about the mud splashing her boots. She moved with a straight-backed, terrifying confidence. She stopped 5 feet away. She smelled of rain and sandalwood. She looked me up and down. Checked the boots. Checked the stubble. She looked unimpressed. You must be the American, she said. Her voice was cut glass. British. Expensive. Caleb, I said. Alara, she replied. No handshake. Arthur says you're a genius. You look like a mechanic. I laughed. A dry, rusty sound. I am a mechanic. I fix things suits break. Her eyes narrowed. A tiny spark of something. Annoyance? Interest? Good, she said. Because everything here is broken. Come inside. Don't track mud. She turned and walked away. I watched her go. I watched the stiff set of her shoulders. I wasn't thinking about Julian. I was looking at the mud on her boots and thinking, she's not afraid to get dirty. The library was designed to intimidate. The ceilings were 20 feet high, lost in shadow. The walls were lined with books that looked like they hadn't been touched since the Napoleonic Wars. A fire crackled in a hearth big enough to roast a hog, but the room still held a damp, bone-deep chill. Alara sat in a high-back velvet chair. She'd shed the wax jacket. Underneath was a charcoal cashmere sweater. It looked soft, expensive. It hung off one shoulder, just slightly, revealing a collarbone that looked fragile. But her hands were steady as she poured tea from a silver pot. I sat opposite her on a leather sofa that creaked aggressively whenever I moved. I felt huge and clumsy in this room. I kept my hands on my knees so I wouldn't accidentally knock over a Ming vase. Arthur sat in the middle, looking like a referee. Sugar, she asked. Black. She handed me the cup. Her finger brushed mine. Her skin was cool. I felt a jolt of static electricity, sharp and sudden. Alara didn't flinch, but I saw her throat move as she swallowed. She set her own cup down without a sound. Let's be blunt, Mr. Vance, she said. Kilmore is failing. My family has made whiskey here for 200 years, but the last 3 batches were inconsistent. Arthur says you're broke, I said. Arthur choked on a scone. Alara went very still. Her hazel eyes turned to ice. She didn't look at Arthur. She kept her gaze pinned on me. We are liquidity challenged, she corrected, which is why I'm hiring you. I need a new master distiller. I need a product that wakes the market up. She slid a piece of paper across the mahogany table. This is a contract. It offers a salary that is 20% above the industry standard. It includes housing in the caretaker's cottage. It includes a performance bonus. I didn't pick up the paper. I barely glanced at it. I don't want a salary, I said. Alara paused. Excuse me. I don't want to be an employee. I've done that. I've been the highest paid employee in Kentucky, and it got me nothing but erased. I leaned forward, elbows on my knees, invading the polite distance she had established. I have something you need. My yeast culture. It's a proprietary strain. It thrives in cold climates. It eats sugar faster and cleaner than anything you have in your tanks. It's the difference between brown vodka and gold medals. Alara's eyes narrowed. And if I put that culture into your tanks, it becomes your whiskey. And if 3 years from now, you decide I'm too rough around the edges, or your board decides they want a cheaper distiller, you fire me, and you keep my yeast. You keep my flavor. I shook my head. I've played that game, Alara. I was the plumbing. I was the guy who kept the pipes running while someone else put their name on the bottle. I won't do it again. So you want equity? Alara said coldly. You want a piece of my family's land, a piece of my history. I want 50% of the liquid we produce. I said, I own the flavor. You own the facility. We split the profit. Alara stood up. It was a fluid, sharp movement. She looked 10 feet tall. This estate has been in my family since 1812, she said, her voice dropping to a whisper that was louder than a shout. My great-grandfather hid barrels in the caves during the war. My father died trying to keep the roof on the warehouse. I do not slice up my birthright for a stranger who walked in here with mud on his boots and a chip on his shoulder. Then good luck with your vinegar, I said. I stood up. I didn't look at Arthur. I looked straight at Alara. You're drowning, I said. I can see it. The roof in the east warehouse is sagging. You've got moss on the north wall, which means your insulation is shot. You're holding this place together with duct tape and pride. Pride doesn't ferment, Alara. Alara's face went pale. A flush of genuine anger, or maybe shame, rose high on her cheeks. Get out, she said. I nodded once. Pleasure meeting you. I turned and walked out. The heavy oak doors clicked shut behind me. I sat on the hood of Arthur's Land Rover, staring at the gray ocean churning below the cliffs. The wind was freezing. It felt good. It felt like reality. The front door of the manor opened. Arthur walked out. He looked tired. He leaned against the car next to me. He lit a cigarette, shielding the flame with his hand against the gale. That went well, Arthur drawled. She's a snob, I said, crossing my arms. She thinks I'm trying to steal her legacy. I'm just trying to protect my work. She doesn't think you're stealing, Arthur said, exhaling smoke. She thinks you're him. I frowned. Who? Her father. He was a brilliant distiller, but he was a terrible gambler. He leveraged the land. He ignored the books. He left her with a mountain of debt and a crumbling castle. She's not protecting a fortune, Caleb. She's protecting a ruin. I looked back at the house. The stone looked darker in the fading light. It didn't look like a castle anymore. It looked like a weight. Does she have the money to run for 3 years? I asked. Whiskey takes time. If we start today, we don't sell a bottle until 2027. Can she keep the lights on? Arthur flicked ash onto the gravel. No, she can't. He turned to me. But I can. I'm putting up the capital. Operating costs, repairs, salaries. For 3 years. I stared at him. Why? Because I believe in the East, Arthur said. And I believe in her. She just needs a partner who won't break her heart or her bank account. He opened the car door. Go back inside. Offer her the lease. Tell her I'm covering the gap. The distillery floor at night was a cathedral of copper and shadow. Alara was standing by the spirit safe, the glass and brass box where the final product flowed. She had changed. The cashmere was gone. She was wearing a thick wool sweater and jeans. She looked smaller here, amidst the industrial machinery, but no less formidable. I walked in. My boots echoed on the concrete. I stopped on the other side of the safe. Glass between us. Arthur is putting up the money, I said. 3 years of operating costs. To get us to the first maturation. Alara didn't look up. She was tracing the brass lock of the safe. I know, he told me. He also told me about your father. Her hand froze. She looked up. Her eyes were still guarded, but the ice had thawed slightly. Then you know why I can't give you equity, she said. I can't risk the land. I don't want the land, I said. I want protection. I pulled a folded paper from my pocket. I had scribbled it on the back of a flight itinerary. You retain full ownership of the recipe. We lease the IP of the yeast from me. If I leave, or if you fire me without cause, the license terminates immediately. We can't make the whiskey without each other. She took the paper. She read it. And autonomy? She asked. No investors in the tasting room. No photo shoots while I'm working. Total autonomy, I said. You run the floor. I run the books. I keep the world away from you. She extended her hand across the spirit safe. 3 years, she said. We have to survive 3 years before we can sell a drop. We'll survive, I said. I took her hand. Her grip was surprisingly strong. The first winter was brutal. The distillery wasn't just old, it was tired. The mill was misaligned. The condensers leaked. The roof of the main warehouse groaned in the Atlantic gales. It was a war of attrition against entropy. Alara was in the trenches with me. She didn't sit in the high tower. She was on the floor. We argued. Constantly. You're grinding them all too fine, she shouted over the roar of the mill one Tuesday. She was covered in flour dust, her hair escaping its bun. I looked up from the control panel. It needs to be fine to extract the sugars for this yeast. It's high efficiency. We've always done a coarse grind, she yelled back. Tradition. Tradition is why your yield is garbage, I snapped. Do you want to please ghosts, or do you want to make alcohol? She bristled. Her jaw went tight. She looked ready to fire me on the spot. Then, she looked at the yield gauge. It was higher than it had been in a decade. She didn't apologize. She just nodded once, sharply, and walked away to check the boiler. That was our dynamic. Friction. Heat. Respect disguised as annoyance. It broke on a Thursday in February. The boiler feed pump blew a gasket. It sounded like a gunshot, followed by the scream of escaping steam. Clear out. I yelled to the staff. Hamish killed the emergency shutoff, but the steam was filling the room. It was scalding. Visibility dropped to 0. We need a part from Glasgow. Angus coughed. 3 days shipping. We don't have 3 days, I said. The mash will sour. We lose the whole batch. I grabbed my toolbox. I didn't think. I slid under the pump housing. Isolate the upstream valve. I yelled. It seized. Hamish shouted back. Then we clamp it live. I grabbed an emergency pipe repair clamp and a sheet of high-temp fiber packing. I didn't wrap my hand in a shirt. That's how you get dead. I grabbed a socket wrench. I crawled under the housing, keeping my head low, below the heat plume. The metal was hissing. I aligned the steel clamp over the blowout, the fiber sheet acting as a buffer. Hamish, hold the light. The steam burned the air in my lungs. I cranked the bolts down. 1 turn. 2. The hissing turned into a high-pitched whine. Then silence. The seal held. I rolled out from under the machine. I lay on the wet concrete, my chest heaving, grease smeared across my face and arms. My hand was throbbing. I saw boots next to my head. Hunter wellies. I looked up. Alara was standing there. She wasn't looking at the pump. She was looking at me. At the grease. At the competence. You fixed it, she said. Her voice was quiet. Plumbing, I muttered, sitting up and wiping my face with a greasy hand. It's what I do. She reached into her pocket and pulled out a clean linen handkerchief. She knelt down, right in the muck, ruining her jeans, and handed it to me. That wasn't plumbing, she said. That was surgery. She didn't smile, but the wall between us cracked. Just a little. Year 2 was the waiting game. The whiskey was in the barrels. The warehouse was full. Now, we just had to let time do the work. The frantic energy of the repairs settled into a routine, a domesticity of labor. I lived in the caretaker's cottage, but I spent my evenings in the main house office, reviewing logs with Alara. It was a Tuesday in November. A storm was battering the coast, rattling the window panes. The fire was lit. We were going over the projections for 2026. Arthur's quarterly trench covers us until March, Alara said, rubbing her temples. She looked tired. There were shadows under her eyes that hadn't been there a year ago. But the roof repairs ate the surplus. If the winter heating costs go up, we're tight. I can cut the shift hours, I said. Run the still slower. No, we don't compromise the spirit. She looked up at me. I won't let you compromise. I got up and walked to the sideboard. I poured 2 glasses of the Angel's Share, samples we'd pulled from Cask 001 earlier that day. It wasn't whiskey yet. It was spirit, but it was getting darker, smoother. I handed her a glass. Drink, I said. She took it. Her fingers brushed mine. They lingered for a fraction of a second longer than necessary. She took a sip. She closed her eyes. It tastes like honey, she whispered. And smoke. It tastes like patience, I said. I watched her. In the firelight, the severity of her features softened. She looked less like the formidable owner of Kilmore and more like a woman who was carrying the weight of the world on her shoulders. I wanted to take the weight. I wanted to reach out and smooth the line between her eyebrows. I didn't. I stayed on my side of the desk. You should sleep, I said. I can't, she said. The storm. The roof will hold, Alara. I reinforced the beams myself. She looked at me. I know. That's why I'll sleep. The air in the room changed. It became heavy, charged. It was the same feeling as the moment before the lightning strikes. We stared at each other. The silence stretched, filled with the things we weren't saying. I trust you. I need you. I admire you. Then a log shifted in the fire, sparking loudly. The spell broke. Good night, Caleb, she said softly. Good night, Alara. I walked back to the cottage in the rain. I didn't feel the cold. The 3-year mark. The legal definition of Scotch whiskey. We bottled the first batch of Exile. It wasn't a mass production run. It was limited. Precious. We were in the bottling hall. Just the two of us. The staff had gone home. I held the first bottle up to the light. The liquid was a deep, rich amber. It caught the light like trapped fire. We did it, Alara said. She was standing next to me. Close. We did, I said. Then, my phone buzzed on the stainless steel table. Mom. I stared at it. I hadn't spoken to them in 3 years. Julian had sent legal threats for the first 6 months, then silence. Answer it, Alara said. I put it on speaker. Caleb. Evelyn's voice was shrill. Thank God. We've been trying to reach you for days. What do you want, Mom? It's the production line, she said. Her voice trembled. The fermentation stuck. The yeast died, Caleb. Julian tried to heat it to restart the batch, and he cooked it. It smells like rot. We missed the shipping deadline. The distributors are canceling contracts. Julian is the CEO, I said, leaning back against the bottling line. Tell him to fix it. He can't. He doesn't know the codes. He doesn't know the nitrogen cycles. We need you to come home, just for a week, to stabilize things. I'm not coming home, Mom. Caleb, please. The family name is at stake. Your brother is drowning. I looked at Alara. She was watching me. Her face was fierce, protective. She moved closer, her shoulder brushing my arm. A physical wall of support. I'm sorry, Mom, I said, but I'm not the family anymore. Remember? I'm just the plumbing. And plumbing doesn't care about the family name. Caleb Vance, if you don't. I hung up. The silence in the hall was absolute. They're failing, I said. The realization washed over me. I didn't feel triumphant. I just felt released. Alara turned to me. She placed a hand on my chest, right over my heart. I've instructed our lawyers to triple-check your IP protection, she said. If they come for you, if they try to sue, I will bury them in paper. I covered her hand with mine. Why? Because you're my distiller, she said, and nobody touches my people. The World Spirits Expo was in London. It was a cavernous hall filled with velvet, crystal, and ego. Vance Heritage had a massive booth, gold banners, models in white dresses, a DJ. It looked desperate. It looked loud to cover the silence of the product. Julian was there. He looked thin. His tan was fading. Sarah was smiling, but her eyes were darting around the room, looking for a better option. Kilmore's booth was simple. Dark wood, stone, a single bottle of Exile on a pedestal. Alara stood next to me. She wore a black evening gown that looked like liquid ink. I wore a dark suit. No tie. We looked like the adults in the room. Julian saw us. He walked over, a glass of warm champagne in his hand. Caleb, he sneered. Playing dress-up? And this must be the landlady. He looked at Alara with dismissive arrogance. Alara McAllister, she said. Her voice was absolute zero. Cute little operation, Julian said. I heard you're making moonshine in a shed. We're making single malt, Julian, I said. 3 years matured. You should try it sometime. It might help you understand why yours tastes like vinegar. Julian flushed. You stole my company. I took my talent, I said. You kept the building. Seems fair. The judges took the stage. Bronze went to Japan. Silver went to Kentucky, a rival brand, not Vance. Gold medal, best in show. Kilmore Estate. Exile. The room erupted. Julian dropped his glass. It shattered on the floor. Sarah stopped smiling. She looked at Julian, then at me, then at the exit. I walked up to the stage. Elara walked with me. We accepted the heavy crystal trophy together. When we came down, Sarah was waiting. She touched my arm. Caleb, that was amazing. We should catch up. Maybe get a drink. She gave me the look that used to work. I looked at her. I felt nothing. No anger. No desire. Just indifference. Before I could speak, Elara stepped in. She didn't raise her voice. She smiled. It was polite and absolutely terrifying. I believe my head distiller is busy, Elara said. Excuse us. She took my arm. She led me away. We walked out onto the balcony overlooking the Thames. The air was cold, smelling of river water and city rain. I looked at her. The moonlight caught the sharp angle of her cheekbone. She was shivering slightly in the silk dress. I took off my jacket and draped it over her shoulders. You defended me, I said. Always, she said, pulling the jacket tighter. It smelled like me. She turned to face me. The trophy was sitting on a table nearby, forgotten. We did it, she whispered. We saved it. We did, I said. Arthur will be happy. Arthur knew, she said. He knew you were the only one who could do it. I looked at her. The survivor. The aristocrat with mud on her boots. The woman who had spent 3 years fighting in the trenches with me. I don't want the license anymore, I said. She froze. Fear flashed in her eyes. The mask slipped for the first time in 3 years. What? You're leaving? No, I said. I don't want the contract. Caleb, I can't give you the land, the bank. I don't want the land, Elara. I stepped closer. I invaded her space. I want a partner. Her breath hitched. She looked up at me, searching my face for a joke. She found none. Oh, she breathed. I reached out. I tucked a strand of dark hair behind her ear. My thumb grazed her jaw. Deal? I asked. She smiled. It was the smile she hid from the world. Unguarded. Radiant. Deal, she whispered. I kissed her. It wasn't complex. It wasn't about viscosity or terroir or ancient oak. It was simple. It was essential. It tasted like coming home.